don't want to go to your funeral. I don't want to plan your funeral. I don't want to have to FaceTime my kids what just happened because their social media and cousins are already texting me and I have to get the message across to my kids.
I've seen it and it's helped so many guys, and I'm just like screaming, like, please, at least give this a shot before you take your own life, because it works. It's crazy. It freaking works,
I'm sure most people have seen the phrase like, I'd rather sit with you in your darkest moment than sit with you at your funeral. There is so much help out there for you, even if you're not the individual struggling with suicide.
All right, welcome back to the Tim Teaches podcast. I'm your host, Tim McCoy. Today I have the honor of speaking with Libby Anderson. Libby is the wife of the late Cory Anderson, a combat veteran with the 101st Airborne Division, who served during the initial invasion of Iraq. Like so many veterans, Cory returned home carrying the mostly invisible wounds of PTSD. And unfortunately, on October 14th of 2024, Cory tragically took his life, leaving behind Libby, his 3 sons and daughter. And this conversation is about honoring Cory's legacy, shedding light on the struggles many veterans face after returning home from war. And so we're going to jump into that. Not an easy conversation to have. But Libby, thank you for joining me and for talking about Cory and his life and the struggles behind PTSD.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad I can be here with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to get a little bit of a backstory on Cory and tell us about him and how you met him and what life was like for you guys before Iraq.
So we met when we were both 19. I was really close friends with his sisters. And he was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and he would come down on the weekends, and we just were good friends and got to know each other really well. And then after about a year, started dating and got engaged, and he shipped off to Iraq, which changed him in ways I don't think I ever knew could happen. He grew up with a dad who served, a brother who served. To me, it was all new. He was a life at the party all the time before. He would help anyone just off the streets, no fear in anything he did. So he went to Iraq, came home. There were signs, but nothing that was, wow, this is extremely concerning. Mm-hmm. We got married, had 4 kids, and it wasn't for about 10 years. He was kind of the same Cory for the most part. But like I said, with the signs here and there, the job loss here and there, or getting angry easily. And then about 10 years into our marriage, it was like a switch flipped. And he just couldn't hold it in any longer. And so from then on, life was just different.
Had he gone, obviously, I would assume he went to the VA and went through that whole rigmarole and was prescribed everything under the sun, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. And the VA has been a joke since the very beginning. I have a few situations that I can share from then. And yeah, all the pills followed by addiction. It's what they do, right?
Mm-hmm. I just am curious about like him and his upbringing, because I really like to get an idea of people. You said his dad and brother were in the military. Were they around after he returned home?
So he returned home. So he is from Utah. Mm-hmm. And so he returned home to Fort Campbell and then moved straight to Georgia. So his brother stayed at Fort Campbell. He was there with him, then went on a second tour after him. So although he was close, he was doing his own thing, still in the military, and his dad was never there from then on out.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just you try to like, and I'm kind of, I've served with a lot of guys who came back and, you know, now they're 100% for PTSD or
Yeah.
have dealt with some serious, serious mental health challenges. I feel like a lot of that has to do with guys isolating themselves and not maintaining that like camaraderie. And I've talked to a lot of guys who run men's groups and stuff like that. And you would think that your family would be enough for, to fill that void. But sometimes these guys need somebody to talk to who's been in the same position,
Yeah.
and I'm curious if he had any kind of network like that or if he was just kind of running solo.
So he kept in contact with um, some of his really good buddies that he served with constantly over the years. His family definitely did not understand. Um, he's one of six, and so some of the siblings were he was closer to than others. But it's hard to navigate when you don't really understand what someone went through.
Mhm.
It's hard to understand the behavior, although it wasn't always okay. It's hard to understand the backstory and where it comes from.
Mhm.
So he kept in contact with his buddies and would see them here and there, but he never had that same camaraderie that you find in the military with people who understand you.
Mhm.
So we are very active in our church, and so we have great friends through that. But there again, they haven't been to war. They didn't live the military life. It's just different.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I don't want to say interesting or weird, but it affects so many people differently and they don't really understand why, lot of it, they say, people who suffer from PTSD may have had a lot of like other traumas in their life earlier
Mhm.
on, and that just exacerbates this issue.
Yes.
And you know,
Which
it's
was the
really,
same with Cory.
yeah, it seems like that's very common, and it's a wonder to me, like if they could screen guys a little bit better for this type of stuff before they get into the military, but most guys being young, they don't want to talk about their problems or, you know, things that have happened to them.
Well, and when Cory joined, I don't think he realized that there were, was this underlying trauma
Mhm.
until he got out and at one point in the last 10 years was in a program where they dug a little bit deeper and it was like, oh, okay, I see where it started and then just compiled on top of,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm just like, this is such a frustrating, obviously, situation because so many people are dealing with this. And, I looked through all your Instagram stuff, and obviously you guys were well aware of his struggles. You were posting about, PTSD, and it looked like you guys were on the right path to finding help,
Thought we were. I thought we were over it.
yeah. What was Cory's, how did he talk about any of this stuff, any of these struggles, or did he just kind of keep it to himself and you were leading the charge on this?
So I think he, it was good for him to talk about it.
Mhm.
So he would talk about it, but sometimes with inappropriate people, people that it's like there's a time and a place for everything, right? And there's a person for every different thing. And so sometimes he would talk about it with people who didn't want to hear it, which is fine because it's hard stuff that, he went through. And so sometimes he'd get shut down from that, or people would be thrown off. I mean, they would be good friends, but it still throws people off sometimes, right? Um, and then there's just so many things that come into play there, like addiction and shame and all these other things. So I felt like in some sense I was leading the course. Like I could see what was going on and I would know he needed therapy, but he pushed back a lot. I think it's part of the stigma, right? I'm fine. I can do this. I don't need to ask for help. It's embarrassing to ask for help. And so I just kept pushing and he would push back. And usually it was another force that would have to get involved, like law enforcement, to get him into correct programs.
Mhm. Law enforcement, I mean, that's pretty extreme. Can you elaborate a little bit? Not to
Yeah,
spill
yeah.
tea, but these are the stories that
No,
people go
for
through.
sure. And I think this is where he reached out for help in all kinds of way. And towards the end, was starting to understand that his way of reaching out, it was okay to reach out for help, but he didn't know how to do it appropriately. So at one point, he was not doing well at all. So when he came back from the military, kind of backstory here, he was a gunner on a Humvee in the military. And then when he got out, law enforcement didn't work. So he was a registered nurse.
Mhm.
And so he did that for a long time. And then it was just too much. He couldn't handle it, TBIs, all the things. And so he didn't work for 6 years.
Mhm.
And so during that time, as you sit at home and you let your mind wander and you're not productive, it eats at you, right? So he would get really bad. And so he was, threatening to take his life at this point. This has been some time. And so someone called the police on him. They came and we had these big cinder blocks on our driveway for a path. And he picked one up to hurt himself, but they thought he was hurting them. So they apprehended him. First offense ever. So because of that, I know not all states have this, but it's called vet court. I don't know if you've heard of it. There's
Yeah.
drug court, similar, things. So because he was successful in the military, because this was his first offense, they're like, hey, come do this program with us and we'll drop your offense, cover it up. No one will know. And so that got him into a program. It took him a long time to buy into it and realize he needed it. And then once he bought into it, it was great. And I thought, this is about when I started my Instagram account. And I was like, we're over this. Like, we're over the hump. This is so great. We weren't.
How long from the time he was arrested till what year was he arrested?
Oh, gosh. So he graduated from the program after COVID. Like, COVID had really ramped up. And he his graduation from the program, I mean, everyone still had masks on, sitting 6 feet apart. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe the end of 2020,
Yeah.
August of 2020, September, something like that. So he did the program for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So I guess he started in 2018, maybe.
What did the program entail? What was it? What did they do there?
So they did weekly or bi-weekly drug tests, and the participant never knew. It was just like, good morning, you're getting a drug test. They regulated all his medicines. He was only allowed to take certain medicines that the VA was prescribing. He had to do group therapy. He had to do AA, which that was never his problem. But it's just something you had to do
Yeah.
in the program. You had to go to like a court every Friday. Um, and if you missed meetings or whatever, you were punished. You had a mentor, all these things that kept him on track, and everyone worked together. The therapists worked with the program. They all worked with the VA. It was together. And I think that's part of what's missing in so many of these veterans' lives. You can go to your therapist, then you can go to your doctor. No one is, I wasn't involved. He didn't want me involved. I think he was afraid for me to be involved too much. So once he got out of the program, those things slowly started to fall away.
Mhm. Yeah, that seems like it would be an amazing program, having all those different pieces working together, and it sounded like it was working for him. But that is a problem with the VA. I mean, I go out to the VA and literally every 3 to 6 months, you have a new doctor and you have to explain your whole life over again to these people. And it's just, it's unfortunate. I hate to trash the VA because some of them are doing the best they can, but
I'm pretty unhappy with them.
Yeah, I would imagine you are. Yeah. But me personally, I never found any kind of help through the VA per se. I tried psychedelics, and that's kind of a new up and coming thing. And had Cory ever heard about that or ever experimented with anything like that?
Not really.
Yeah.
I think I was too worried. We have 4 kids. And towards the end, I think what the breaking point was is he really wanted to go back to work. So he went back to work, and it was not successful at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so him being at work, having 4 kids, we already went through a prescription drug addiction. I was very apprehensive to even learning about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like really extreme, and it is actually pretty extreme, but it has been helping a lot of guys. And so, I'm not pushing it, but I definitely, like, when people get to their wit's end and they've tried all the medication, they've tried everything and nothing else has helped. I mean, it was a light switch for me, literally. I mean, it changed my life, and I know it's changed a lot of other people's. And I just wish that, and I know the VA is looking into it more and trying to see if this is a program that they're going to be using with veterans. And I really hope they do, because I know that it can help people like Cory. How are you and how are your kids? Obviously, this has not been very long ago.
No, it's hell. I mean, we just hit our 6 months, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I would have never thought as many threats as Cory made that I'd be here. And thinking back what I've gone through over the last 6 months, like, I had to pick up my kids and leave where we are living. It happened in our house. And we couldn't even live there for a bit. But I don't know how to get this point across, but it's really hard to understand the severity of it. I don't think I realized how bad Cory was because I didn't understand it until now I'm experiencing my own PTSD. Like, I heard the gun, I heard, and then just living through what I had to live through those first, 4 hours. And so now little things that I'm like, I would tell him, why can't you do this? Like, this is so simple. Can you please take care of this? And now can't do those small tasks. But how do you make someone really understand how real it is? And so that's where, like, the psychedelics and stuff comes into play. I think had I understood the severity of this, I might have been a little more like, yeah, let's do it. Because I don't want to go to your funeral. I don't want to plan your funeral. I don't want to have to FaceTime my kids what just happened because their social media and cousins are already texting me and I have to get the message across to my kids, one who's across the country. Like, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to. And so it's horrific. So I'd say educate yourself.
Yeah, it is horrific. And I mean, I understand the people that take their lives are going through incredible pain. I mean, you must be to get to that point where, you take your own life and you leave behind your family.
Yeah.
The pain you must be going through, but being in I was in law enforcement, and we respond to calls of people threatening to take their life. And most of the time when somebody's threatening to take their life, it's at the front of their mind,
Yeah.
and you need to take it seriously. And I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the people listening to this. If you're dealing with a loved one who is openly discussing this, you need to take it seriously and try to mitigate that the best you can. And obviously people are going to do what they're going to do. And no
They
matter
are.
what you tell them, once somebody's made up their mind, we're kind of out of it, but we want to help and support those people the best we can to try to avoid that situation. But
And it's so hard. I'm not saying that it's easy because there were times that I would be like, you're manipulating this situation. And I don't know if I don't believe that Cory always realized that he would manipulate a situation. Like he really was not good. And I think the further it got, the worse he got. Um, and so I understand it's hard and it's easy to just think that if I ignore it, they'll be fine or they just need a moment. Like that day, I had no clue. Like I knew he wasn't good. The kids and I had spent the night away the night before. And when we came back, I knew he wasn't good. But we were talking on the porch and I said, you need to go into a full-on treatment, like live-in treatment.
mhm.
And he just turned away. Like it wasn't an argument. He just walked away. And then I heard it. So it's like, you don't always even realize that it's going to happen. We've been through this and down this road so many times. So it's like, what made this time different than any other time?
Yeah. And it's not something you said, it's obviously, it's just, he had more than likely been thinking about this for a very long time. And so, but sometimes people are just like, that's it, and it's not, we could talk about spirituality and afterlife and all this stuff, but it's not going to fix the, it doesn't fix anything, and there is help. And I just want to hammer this home to people, like, please, if you are struggling, like look into these different veteran programs that are out there that are dealing with psychedelics. And I'm not a drug pushing hippie guy.
Yeah.
I've seen it and it's helped so many guys. And I'm just like screaming, like, please at least give this a shot before you take your own life,
Yeah.
because it works. It's crazy. It freaking works, and
Yeah.
it pisses me off that, people know it works and it's still blocked by the federal government, and it's so hard to get your hands on. I had to go to Costa Rica,
Oh, wow.
but
Okay.
but it was it changed my life. I'm the dude, looking out the window and like all your typical
Yeah.
PTSD stuff. And it changed my life. And I just wish for you and your family, like, that I could have met you a year ago, so I could, you know, tell Cory, like, dude, there's hope, there's help out there. Um,
But I
you
think
know,
that's why we're both here today is to help anyone struggling and in this position that there is hope. And that's what's hard is that I had so much hope, but now that hope is gone. Like I have to find hope in something else, right? Um, but
well,
yeah, that's
you
why
have
we're here. We're doing.
hope in your children, and this is going to be a forever lasting thing for
Yeah.
them, and it's horrible. But I hope that, terrible things happen in life, horrible things. But, a lot of those things happen to us. They're not who we are or who we become,
Yeah.
and that's just, it's part of our life. But, I hope your kids someday will understand, like, it wasn't about them, it was about their dad and his struggles, and it's horrific
It is.
to,
And I do think my kids realize that. That doesn't mean they don't have moments because I even do. I'm like, what if I had just given him a hug before he walked in the door? Or what if I had done this? Or it was still his choice. And there's really nothing that I can do about that. But we, for the longest time, have worked out raising awareness. Like one of my posts, we went on a ruck where Cory rucked with a ton of men, and we and the wives and kids follow them around, and we would stop at certain places and do little things. And um, so my kids are very aware of the struggles.
Mhm.
And Cory has had numerous friends that have done the same thing. So although I'm sad that they have had to grow up for so many years helping advocate for that, I think in the long run, it has helped them see, hopefully, that it's not their fault and there's nothing that they could have done differently to keep their dad here.
Mhm. What was Corey's attitude towards those things, going to do these rucks, and he was aware of the issues. I mean, front and center, if you're doing
Yeah.
this type of events. um
It broke him. It broke him like every time which I'm sure you can understand, every time he had a friend or not a friend, like a, you know, fellow soldier, whatever.
yeah.
Um, it broke him, it was so heart-wrenching for him. And he understood it, their pain, and he understood the pain it was causing him. And I know he didn't want to put that on us. Um, and he understood it, but I just think there comes that point where you're at your breaking point. At one point, he even started his own Instagram account um, to advocate for it and kind of share his thoughts and hope that others would, not make that choice.
Mhm. Yeah, it's uh, I wish I had like a ton to say about this situation. The only thing I can say is, like, it's completely heartbreaking, and it's, I just don't, people shouldn't suffer in silence. But a lot of people, I mean, he had a whole family, around him, and he was probably still suffering in silence because nobody can, you said you're suffering from some PTSD, obviously now. But nobody can get in your head, and that's where all this stuff sits. And,
Yeah,
and, I just, man, it's like, this is just like so heart wrenching for me, and
it
I've
is.
been to,
It's horrible.
yeah, in law enforcement, going to some of these scenes. I've been to these scenes where people have taken their life, and it's horrific to for the families. The person, it's horrible that they do it, but you are left to pick up the pieces with your family and your kids, and people don't understand, like, when they do something like this, you're not just easing your pain, you're putting somebody else in probably a thousand times more pain than you're dealing with. Maybe, it's hard to quantify it, but
The trickle effect of that, which I battle with this in my mind because I would always tell him, if you do this, you're not just ending your pain, you're transferring your pain. So it's like, yeah, you're giving us your pain, but like you're suffering so bad. It's so hard to but it's such a trickle effect. I know for a fact he had no clue what was going to happen when he did this. He thought, and he would tell me that I'm taken care of. Everything is fine. I'll get life insurance. Everything that he was getting from Social Security and the VA, I would continue to get in his mind. I'd get it the rest of my life. Do you know what happened the day he died? I lost my house. I lost all financial benefits from Social Security and the VA, medical insurance. They dropped everything because now I'm a new case. So
Mm-hmm.
for some stupid reason, this is how the VA works, I guess. They couldn't just transfer everything. They dropped it all and I had to reapply. How messed up is that?
Yeah, it's horrific. It's a broken system, and
It's so broken.
yeah, I don't know exactly how the VA works when somebody passes away or takes their own life, and that person's receiving benefits, but it should be something as simple as, okay, this person was receiving benefits. I know there's like a 10-year limit of that you have to be receiving certain benefits before it's permanent for the spouse, but it should be check the box, and it
Cory
just
was
transfers.
100% P&T'd.
Yeah.
It literally dropped the day he died. I did not get another check.
Wow.
It took at least 4 months with a lot of fighting to get it. And I am still waiting 6 months later for Social Security.
Oh gosh.
I mean, we had friends set up a GoFundMe account. Had I not had that, and then little things like half of our vehicles are only in his name.
Mm-hmm.
Even the vehicle that's in both of our names, no one would do anything until his name was taken off of it. I couldn't even pay my T-Mobile phone bill because I wasn't on it and T-Mobile wouldn't take a payment. A payment?
Yeah.
So it's little things like that it doesn't work out how the veteran thinks it's going to play out.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. And
At
you know,
all.
yeah, it's if somebody's in the same boat as you, like, were you able to get any kind of help, and how did you find that help, like getting your benefits reactivated and everything through the VA?
Yeah. So TAPS, I don't know if you've heard of Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. They're pretty amazing. They helped. We have a few friends that served, and so they've helped. I have a bunch of attorneys that go to our church that were willing to do pro bono work. It was a group effort.
Yeah,
And
so not easy.
consistently checking in. No, not easy. And my son, my oldest, still doesn't have health insurance. But because he's 19, it's a whole nother battle. And I'm like, it's just one kid.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly working on it. But yeah, so there's a lot of programs that are um, helpful out there. You just have to find them and know of them.
Mhm.
So fortunately, I had friends. I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, I had friends that have been through the same thing and were like, okay, you need to do this and you need to do this.
So you're doing obviously a little bit of advocacy and getting the word out there, and this you've been doing it pre the pre this I don't even want to call it an experience, but the loss of your husband, and you're kind of spreading the word. Do you have any programs or affiliation with any groups that you would want people to get in touch with?
So TAPS is great. Another organization that I've worked a little bit with is QRF Up.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been really great too. And what that is an app. I don't know. Do you know about them?
I just heard it today
Okay.
on one of your other podcasts you were on.
Yeah, yeah. So it's an app, and if you need help, you just press the button. And it's not nationwide yet, but what it does is it brings a veteran, someone who understands, to your home,
Oh, wow.
which and I don't know if this is good or bad or it is just is what it is. I never called 911 on Cory.
Mhm.
it was always other people. I was too afraid, and I think people knew it. And so no one was ever hesitant to call, which I will forever be grateful for those people
Yeah.
because I think this may have happened sooner. But it's hard to call because that's the last thing that, for one, Cory wants is a police officer at his house, right?
Mhm.
I've got 4 kids. That's the last thing we want our kids to see. So this is a veteran will show up at your house or meet you somewhere or take you out, understands you, and it's not as big of a threat, right? Um, to yourself and just so I think they're doing great things to get their program up and running nationwide. Um,
That's
there-
that's
what's that?
incredible. Like
Yeah,
to
I
be able
wish
to
I,
kind of like life alert for veterans.
yes, or first responders, it's not even just
Yeah.
military. Um, I think a lot of problems with many programs is funding. There's so many programs out there, but they only can help so many people, right? And that's a problem across the board with a lot of things, right? Is funding and being able to support what you need to do. But there is help. And even for wives or family members or friends going through this, it's pretty lonely. Um, don't hesitate to reach out. Like QRF up, I could have even reached out to them. You know, there are people that will listen and sit with you and carry you through. You just have to do it.
So if there's somebody listening out there and their husband or spouse is, you know, kind of in the same boat you were in a year ago, is there any advice or anything you would say to that person to try to help them not wind up in the same situation you were in?
Don't be afraid to reach out. Do not be afraid to reach out and educate yourself. I so wish I was more educated. I think towards the end, I would just almost ignore it because it was so intense. And I'm trying to be a mom, I'm trying to be a spouse, a caretaker, all these things. And so it got so crazy that I think I would just kind of push it away. So I think educating yourself in all the different things, all the different side effects that are real, that sometimes with Cory, I'd be like, whatever, there's no way. So educate yourself and don't be afraid to reach out. And I'm sure most people have seen the phrase like, I'd rather sit with you in your darkest moment than sit with you at your funeral, or there's some phrase
Mhm.
like that. There is so much help out there for you, even if you're not the individual struggling with suicide,
Yeah.
because it's important that we find refuge also. And some of that because going through what I went through was so hard over the last 10 years. I don't know how I did it. And I don't know if I would have been able to keep doing it if we stayed, you know? And so I don't want other women or people in my position to look and be like, well, you don't understand how bad this is, or I do, and I get it's not easy to make phone calls. I get it's not easy to reach out, but I promise it's a lot worse to be in the position I'm in. And I
Yeah.
do understand that sometimes leaving might be the better option. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard, but this is not any easier.
Yeah. And I agree. And, not all veterans are wonderful, perfect people, they're
But Cory
hard to deal
wasn't
with.
always. I mean,
Yeah.
none of us are, right?
No, it's hard to deal with though. And, I would just say like, if you're in a relationship with somebody who's struggling with PTSD and you feel unsafe or something like that, do not hesitate to leave that situation because your
Absolutely.
life is just as important as that veteran's life. And
Absolutely.
yeah, everybody always says, thanks for your service and all veterans are heroes. Cool, great. Yeah, that's true, but everybody life is valuable. And so make
Yes.
sure you're always safe. And, um, I don't know where I was going with that. I know that a lot of people,
Yeah.
spouses are struggling too, and
Yeah,
feel
and I
unsafe.
don't mean to belittle their pain or their life
No,
whatsoever. Like
no,
I
not at all.
totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, I mean, you've dealt with it firsthand. You know better than anybody. And
Yeah. It's hard.
Libby, what am I missing?
I don't know. Just reach out. Please stay. If you're struggling, stay, reach out. Reach out to me. There's so many people that really do want to help
Yeah,
and be afraid.
absolutely. And if you're listening to this and you have tried everything, reach out to me. Send me a message. Because I'll put you in touch with some of the people that I know that a lot of veterans have received so many benefits. I'm doing a Veterans Week in August. It's a week-long deal down in Costa Rica, the same place I went. I was able to get them a $2,000 discount on this place, and they're actually doing 3 sponsored spots for veterans and first responders. And I'm hoping that any guys who are struggling out there, or gals, can come there and get the help they need. And also, it's not really public, but a spouse, somebody like yourself who you've dealt with PTSD yourself. I mean, you're dealing with it just the same as that veteran, especially now. They could probably put people like you into that program as well. And there's a lot of benefit to it.
I'm sure.
It's wild, but well, Libby, I wish you all the best and your family, your sons and your daughter. I'm sorry for the loss of your husband.
Thank you.
You're
true loss, and I don't think people understand how missed they really are.
Yeah. It's you're not doing yourself or anybody a favor by taking your own life. Get help. Talk to somebody. There is light at the end of the tunnel if you work hard towards it. It's not easy, but
it's worth it.
Libby, thank you much. I appreciate you joining me, and thank you all for listening. Please share this if you found some value in it.